class. In this video, I'm going to explain our topic 2 assignment called Aligning Standards and Learning Objectives. So in part 1 of the assignment, you're going to be reviewing the College of Ed lesson plan example that you find over here in your study materials. I have that pulled up. So here is the College of Education lesson plan example, and you'll notice it's kind of long, but it's filled out in purple. So all of this purple text is what the example lesson plan is. All of the black text is the template, and you'll notice in some of these boxes we have black text, and this gives some guidance to you when you are writing a lesson plan of what should actually go in these boxes. But we're really looking at the purple part because this is the example lesson plan. Now, when I look at my assignment, it says we want to first identify the academic standard and the learning objective. So for this part of the assignment, you're literally going to go into your example plan and you're going to find the standard, and you're going to pull this standard and copy and paste it right over to your assignment. Then you're going to find the learning objective and do the same thing. Just copy, paste right over to your assignment. That will make that your LOPES report higher for these two areas, but everybody has it tagged for these areas, so it's not a concern. When you're using standards in your assignments for GCU, us as instructors, we know that it's going to tag the standard, and we're not concerned about that because we really want you to copy and paste standards. You shouldn't be adjusting or changing the standards to try to change that similarity report. So after you do those two parts where you identify the academic standard and the learning objective, you're going to then read both of those and see if are they aligned and how do you know. So you're going to look at the standard and look at the learning objective and make sure that they match. Are they aligned to each other? Do they talk about the same things and do they cover the same things? Do know that sometimes our standards have a lot of content in them and they can't be taught in one day. So somebody might be just taking a piece of that standard and teaching it. For example, in language arts, you might be teaching about characters, setting, and events, but teaching all three of those in the same day might be too much. So I might just choose setting, and I might write a learning objective around students will identify this setting in different texts, but I don't use characters or major events in my learning objective. That doesn't mean that it's not aligned. It just means I haven't covered that standard fully yet, but there is a piece that it is aligned to in the standard. So you want to see if those two are aligned and provide a quick rationale. Remember, this section only needs to be 250 to 500 words. So your rationale doesn't have to be this long explanation. It can be several sentences where you just match the parts of the standard to what matches with the objective and why they do, or where you'll say this is where they're not aligned. Then you're going to read the lesson and talk what it's about and what does it cover. Now, this is a reading lesson, so it's really important that you talk about the reading skills that are being developed opposed to talking about the topic that's being developed. The topic is about medieval times, and they're using that to read about, but they're really wanting students to practice reading skills while doing this medieval times reading. If this was a social studies lesson and the focus was really on a certain era about the medieval times, that would be really the focus of the lesson. But because this is a reading lesson, our focus is on the reading skills we're trying to develop. So really try to focus in on that. The last piece of part 1 is, do the assessments effectively measure the academic standard and the learning objective? So you're going to go back to this lesson plan, and at the multiple means of expression section right here, this is where assessment lives in this lesson plan template. And so they give a lot of that summary on how to fill out the section when you're writing your own. But here you can see this is what the assessment is for this lesson. I want you to read through all of this assessment and how they're making sure students understood the lesson and compare it to your standard and your learning objective. Are they looking for the same thing? Are they assessing students on the same exact thing they said they wanted students to learn in the objective? Are they fully aligned? If they are, explain why they're aligned. You're going to want to look for some of the same wording. Like, are they using the same wording a little bit? Look for matches there. This is where you have to have a real fine-tuned eye for alignment. If they're not aligned, explain why they're not aligned. What's missing? What are they doing in the assessment that's different than what they said they wanted students to do in the objective? So that's part one of the assignment. Part two of the assignment asks you to unwrap the standards. So I provided a video in the announcements of me unwrapping some standards, a math standard that I recommend that you do go and watch, because this is kind of what you're going to need to do for part two. So first you want to select a K-8 and Arizona academic standard. Okay, so you're going to want to select a K-8 and Arizona academic standards. So if you selected one from your state, I'm okay with you selecting your own state standard, and if you don't use an Arizona standard, but you'll notice in our path we do have the Arizona standards linked here. And it's really important that you do a different one than the one that was in the example lesson plan we have for part one. So do not do the same standard that you found in that example lesson plan. In addition, in my video, I do one on elapsed time. Don't use that standard either. So I am going to go ahead and take you over here to the Arizona website, our Department of Education website, which I just logged on and they updated it and looks different. So it takes you to this page, and over here on the right-hand side, it says Standards and Competencies. So you'll go ahead and click on that, and you'll choose whatever topic you want to teach. I would recommend staying in with language arts, math, science, social studies, one of those areas, because these are the core subjects that elementary educators teach. Math is my area that I currently do a lot of work in, so it's the area that I like to always jump to. So you'll see on the Arizona site, when I click into the K-5 standards, I can choose by grade level. So let's go ahead and take a look at third grade. So when I open up the standards documents, there's a lot of information at the beginning of our standards that aren't actually the standards. So you want to make sure that you pass all of this kind of front matter here. I can see it says an overview. Then they start telling me what our major and supporting clusters are. So in math, these are the most important things that students are learning, and we need to spend, it says, we should be spending 60 to 75% of our year and our time teaching these major clusters. Now when I scroll down, I can see my standards. Here I can see that we have operations and algebraic thinking. This is our domain. Our domain is more of like an overarching area in which our smaller standards fall. Over here, OA A is the first part of this OA domain. So this is the first topic. This cluster here represent and solve problems including number, multiplication, and division. All four of these standards are going to have to do with multiplication and division, but these here are your standards. So you're going to choose one standard in K-8 to go ahead and break down into objectives. So let's go ahead and look at this first one here. 3 NBT A1. In my part 2 of my lesson plan, of my assignment, I'm going to literally copy and paste the code 3 NBT A1 and the standard and put them right onto my part 2 of the assignment. So right here, I'm going to put the grade level and the standard. Once I do that, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to break this into a know objectives, a understand, and a do. So let's take a look at that standard. Students will use place value understanding to round whole numbers to the nearest 10 and 100. So I'm going to look at this and I'm going to have to analyze what do students need to know. Well, they need to know what place value is. They need to know what rounding is. So I could write an objective around something like that. Then what do they need to do? They need to use place value to round numbers. And what do they need to understand? They need to understand that rounding helps us estimate, or they need to understand that we can round numbers to different places. And so we'll write 3 simple objective statements, like I did in the video that I posted in the announcement, around what students need to know, understand, and do. Once you do that, then you'll just give me a lesson summary. So if you were going to teach this rounding lesson, what would it look like? What would you do? How would you teach it? Just give a quick summary in a few sentences. I would get out a number line and I would have students locate the number on the number line. And then we talk about, is it closer to which 10 or which 100 is the number closer to? And just a quick summary of how you could teach this standard. So in part 1, you're analyzing a lesson plan that was already written. In part 2, you're choosing your own standard of your choice and you're breaking it down into 3 objectives and giving me a quick summary of your lesson. I hope this helps as you're trying to complete your topic 2 assignment. Please reach out if you have any questions or need any support. Have a great weekend.